A few months ago, I spent a month helping somebody break their addiction to spending. His name was Grant, and not only did he start saving 3 times more money, he also started enjoying life more. So in this video, I want to go through the process that I went through with him and hopefully help you do the exact same thing. But first, I want to play 30 seconds from a chat that I had with him just so you can hear it directly from him.
Okay, so if I remember correctly, when you started, you were looking at saving around $200 a month. Do you have an estimate for how much you're saving now?
Yeah, actually, we can look at this right now. 'Cause I have about $670 compared to my last couple months above. So I'm about a little over $400 positive than I have been in past months.
So that 670 is this month's savings.
Yes,
So we're like,
I'm up $400.
so we tripled savings.
Yeah, I guess so. I think a lot of people have asked, like, oh, where do you dream to be this in a couple years and this in a couple years? And I'm like, guys, I just want to be happy. That's it. It's very simple. I just want to be happy. And something that I realized helped me a lot is if I'm more on top of my finances and stressing out significantly less over that, it gives me a much larger peace of mind that's like not payable, not quantifiable. But de-stresses me a lot. But this is definitely it's like quantifiably so I've been able to notice that like I'm more in control of my finances and am happier or less stressed from it.
So what made this difference? How did Grant go from saving $100 to $200 a month to saving $670 in a month? And how did he reduce all of his stress so that he felt more confident and comfortable with money? Well, the first thing that we did is we found his why. When I first started working with Grant, the idea of reaching financial freedom and trying to retire early didn't really resonate. That's my goal, but it wasn't his goal. So while I'm on this path to try to retire before I turn 30, Grant just wanted to be less stressed with money. And there were a lot of things that were causing him stress about money. For one, he was in credit card debt. And he wasn't in a huge amount of credit card debt, but it was still causing him stress and it was still bothering him that he had this credit card. He really didn't like his credit card company. And it was just another thing nagging him in the back of his mind and costing him money every single month. The much bigger thing was his car loan. He had bought a car sort of in peak COVID when cars were extremely expensive, and he was paying 11% interest on his car loan, which is absolutely absurd. So his monthly payment on this vehicle was over $400 a month, which for Grant was a lot of money. So this car loan was sort of the immediate thing that was causing a huge financial burden to Grant's situation. But then also sort of lingering in the background is that Grant also had tens of thousands of dollars in student loan debt. And while this didn't have a super high monthly payment, so it wasn't causing a huge financial burden on a month-to-month basis, it was also something that was growing in the background, and it was just this huge blooming issue that Grant knew that he would have to tackle eventually, but that he hadn't really started to tackle. And the problem was really only getting worse in the background. And the last thing, which I think is relevant here, is that Grant had just moved in with his partner. And while they were still keeping their finances separate, they still do, this is still something that was on Grant's mind because eventually they wanted to buy a house together, and Grant wanted to be able to contribute financially to this relationship. So I think this was actually a little bit of a wake-up call for Grant to start taking his money seriously, because your money problems don't just impact you. Your money problems really impact everyone around you. That impacts your parents, it impacts your spouse or your partner, and it definitely impacts your kids. So if you need even more reason to be motivated to take care of your financial issues, then do it for other people, because it's not just about you. But no matter what, you have to find your why. Why do you want to make the changes? Because if you want to get out of the financial position that you're in, if you want to save more money, you have to have a reason. You're not going to change your behavior if there's not a reason to change your behavior. And this is especially true if you're making a big transformation. Some people truly change their entire identity. I mean, I did. When I first discovered the financial freedom movement, it truly rewrote who I was as a person because it rewired my expectations and my plans for the future. And so my why at that point is that I wanted to reach financial freedom as fast as I possibly could so that I could have this freedom that really excited me. But that doesn't resonate with everybody. And again, it didn't resonate with Grant. For Grant, he just wanted to be less stressed. He just wanted to be able to enjoy life without worrying about his credit card calling him and demanding a payment, without worrying about his student loans building the background and demanding payment. He didn't want to have to pick up his phone and worry that it was a debt collector on the other side. These things really add up and just weigh on people's minds, and they just really do add so much stress over time. So for Grant, again, that was his why. But your why might be buying a house, it might be paying for college for your kids, it might be financial freedom, it might be anything. But you have to know yours. If you want to change your behavior, you have to know why. And here's why this is super, super important. If you're making a change, it will feel painful if you feel like you're giving up something that you wanted. And if your current behavior is one way, then it's probably giving you something that you wanted. So if you change with no reason, it will feel like you're sacrificing whatever it is that you get out of your current behavior. But if you have a why, then there's a reason to deal with that pain. Because you will only change when the cost of not changing is greater than the cost of changing. And this is how you become happier while saving more money. Because you'll be excited to move from where you are to a new identity. Working towards a new identity is what makes all of that transformation worth it. It makes it feel like you're on a journey towards something better rather than just depriving yourself of something you wanted. Once you do have your why, the next step is thinking about what changes you want to make to take yourself from your current state to that new desired state. And here is where you really want to start small. You actually want to start smaller than you probably think. Because at the moment that you decide that you want this new identity and you want to make this change, you're probably pretty close to peak motivation. You get really, really excited because you're thinking about that end state already. So you get motivated, you'll do anything it takes. But that is fleeting. That goes away. That motivation will vary, especially when things get tough, when things get boring, and when it takes longer than you think it will. So it's super important to get the momentum that will feed your journey. So you'll feel like you're getting closer and closer and closer rather than tackling the biggest, hardest problem and then running into a brick wall and then falling back on your old actions. I sort of think of this in terms of working out. If you haven't worked out in like 10 years, you've never lifted a weight, you haven't done anything, your muscles are super weak, your joints aren't used to it, you don't want to go to the gym for the first time in 10 years and try to lift the heaviest weights. You want to start with something really small and get your body used to that, build up, and then over time, you'll be able to take on the bigger and tougher challenges. And it's the exact same thing when you're trying to make changes around saving money. You don't want to start by making this huge, huge change overnight that's going to make you feel like you're completely deprived, or it's going to take away something, completely changes your life. You're in a new situation, you'll be more stressed out, you'll be more likely to return to your safety net, those old habits that got you where you are in the first place. But if you are struggling to save, you probably have a lot of little expenses that kind of float around that really eat away at your budget. And a lot of times when I actually go through people's expenses with them, these are usually way more than they realize. So this is where you want to start. And back to Grant, for Grant, this was energy drinks.
So I was just buying Red Bull all the week. All of a sudden I'm like, oh, I spent $40 on Red Bull, where in the past of going, I've only spent 10. The thing that's gonna last the most is, like you said, the saving of that $40 every week, because it's a good habit now. Saving that $40 for the rest of my life every week is, I think, gonna vastly outweigh the any quick schemes that we could have done.
For you, it might be something completely different. It might be clothes, it might be coffee, it might be going out and clubbing every weekend. It really could be anything. But there's probably something small that eats away at a lot of your money that you could make some small changes to. You don't have to completely get rid of it. You don't have to never buy something like that. But you could probably reduce it and start saving more money and start getting those wins. And I've been trying for a long time to figure out how to actually help people do this, because just a YouTube video isn't enough sometimes. In a YouTube video, I can give you information, but some people need a little bit more. So what I did is I created a community where I actually guide people through this process. And what I think is a really important part of it is actually try to provide some of that accountability to hold you accountable to the savings goals that you set for yourself, to take you from the point you are now to the point that you really want to be. And I am literally losing money to run this community, but I do this because I love helping people, and I would love to help you too if you think that's something that would help you make the transformation that you want to make. And I just want to emphasize that even as you do start giving up these smaller things that maybe you think are really important to you, that you think you need to have to be happy, you really might realize that you become happier even as you reduce these things. Because what you might realize is that by buying things less, they become more special. So for example, I absolutely love chai lattes, but if I ordered a chai latte every single morning, then I probably wouldn't care that much about them. But as it is, I only have a chai latte like once every 3 months, and I absolutely love having those chai lattes. But what makes them great is that they feel special. They don't feel normal. They feel out of the ordinary. So not only will you adapt to your new normal that you create for yourself, and you will adapt. I mean, humans can adapt to pretty much everything. So not only will you adapt, then when you do have those treats, they actually feel like treats. And this is how, again, you become happier while saving more money. But no matter what, you really need to keep in mind, especially as you start, that you need to focus on repetitions, not results. One of the reasons that I built my accountability program the way I did is because motivation is fleeting. And I talked about this earlier, where when you want to make a change, that's when you're at peak motivation. So you see people when they make their New Year's resolutions, that's at their highest motivation. Some people really hit a point where they're willing to sacrifice anything to save more money because they realize that it will change their life, it will change when they become financially free, it will reduce their stress, whatever it is. Again, whatever their why is, they're willing to make any sacrifice to do that. But that only lasts for a moment. So what's really important is that when you are motivated, when you're at that peak motivation, you want to set up the systems at that point that will keep you motivated even as your motivation goes down. And this might sound a little counterintuitive, but it's really important that you don't focus on how much money you're saving at the start. How much you're saving doesn't actually matter at all. What's much, much more important is that you build the habit of saving. So let me give you an example. If somebody started out and they were super motivated, super excited, they wanted to save way more money and crush all their goals, so they start out super strong, and every single week, maybe they start saving $100 a week. And maybe that lasts for 6 weeks, but maybe then they lose motivation, they don't hit their goal that week of saving $100, and then next week, maybe they only save $50, and then they start losing motivation, they've lost their steam, they don't have momentum, and it's just so easy to roll back to where you were, to feel like you can't succeed, and to give up. But there's another alternative there, because somebody else might be just as motivated, but instead of starting out and trying to make a huge change and trying to save $100 per week, maybe they just set up a system where maybe they only save an extra $10 per week. For those first 6 weeks, they'll be saving way less money. The first person would have saved $600 after 6 weeks. This other person would have only saved $60 in 6 weeks. So it seems like they're not getting closer to their goals, or at least not as fast as they could. But the difference is that that person who's only saving $10 per week, they're able to save $10 per week even when they have a terrible week, even when they have no motivation, even when they want to spend every dime they have. They're able to set aside that strength to stick to that habit and keep saving that $10. So if they hit a rough spot in week 7, they still stick with it. They still save that $10, and they just keep doing that over time and over time and over time. Now what's important here is that just saving $10 forever, that might not help them hit their goal. But the point at the start is not to get closer to the goal, it's to build the systems that you can scale, you can leverage, that will get you closer to your goal later on. Because once you've built this habit of saving money every week, it doesn't matter that they've only saved $10 per week. Eventually, they can add to that. And eventually, it will feel just as easy to start saving $20 per week. Because saving the $10 will just already be so baked into their habits that increasing that is way easier for them. So in a year from now, once they have that habit and once they have that system, they might also be able to save $100 per week, just like the first person. But they've worked up to it and they've built it so baked into who they are, who their identity is, just all of the actions that they take support that so that then in the future they have this system that they can leverage, and that will get them closer to their goal. So at the beginning, don't focus necessarily on how much closer you are to getting to your goal, because that's the point that you're farthest from your goal. It will feel very daunting. You'll feel like you have so far to go, and it's just way too easy to lose motivation, and that's the point where you're most likely to roll back to your past habits. Just focus on making that improvement and focus on that consistency. And if you do this every single day and every single week and every single month, it will slowly rewire truly who you are as a person, and that will help you achieve your goal in the future. So for Grant, there were so many things that we could have done to help Grant save more money, but every single week that I was working with him, we just picked one thing. And sometimes that was just one action, like refinancing his car loan, which I'll talk about in a moment. And other times it was a savings system, like trying to food prep that week and trying to not eat out for that entire week. But each week it was just one thing to focus on that felt achievable, that felt doable, and that slowly starts to rewire how you think about money, your relationship with money, and how much you're saving. And that starts to snowball very, very quickly sometimes. But give it time and let those repetitions be the goal, not the result. And the last step is to just do the math and to stop procrastinating. I've worked with a lot of people now, and I think it's just so easy for some people to bury their head in the sand and ignore their problems and just keep scraping by as they have. But that is not how you want to live the rest of your life. You don't want to scrape by for the rest of your life. So do not ignore this, because this only gets worse. There is just a real true urgency to actually taking action and making changes. Because if you're in debt right now, that debt isn't going to go down. That debt is just going to go up. And that stress that you feel, that's only going to go up. Trying to put it off and not worry about it until the future is a coping mechanism that does not work well when those problems become bigger problems faster and faster and faster. The best time to tackle your problems was yesterday. But since we can't do it yesterday, the best time is right now. And while I understand that these things are sometimes scary and they're very stressful, they're very intimidating, the fact of the matter is that by tackling these things now, this is really how you start saving more money without even reducing your quality of life. You don't even have to start giving up things that you enjoy a lot of times. Because for Grant, one of the biggest things he could do to start saving more money was to just refinance his car loan, which was charging him this 11% interest. That's absolutely absurd. He could easily get that down to 6 to 7%. So just doing that, it wouldn't change his quality of life at all. He would still have the same car, he'd be making the same amount of money, he could buy everything else he was buying, but just that would save him thousands of dollars over the next couple of years. And credit cards are another really common example, where if you wait, it just starts costing more. But if you tackle it now, and if you refinance, or if you just start paying off that debt and prioritizing that over any of your other expenses or any of your other investments, then that will pay off. And your expenses, your monthly expenses will go down, even as you're still buying the same things, because that interest that you're paying might be one of your biggest expenses. It is for a lot of people. Remember, Grant was paying $400 a month on his car payment, and he was only saving $100 to $200 per month. So by getting rid of that car payment, he could 2x to 4x his monthly savings without changing his quality of life. He could buy the same things. He would have the same things. But by getting rid of that payment, he would have so much more money that he could save. And there are so many people who are in the same position. So actually do the math and see what this is costing you. There are calculators you can use to calculate how much interest you have to pay on your debt. And there are other calculators which you can use to see what your money could grow to if you saved it and if you invested it instead. And it doesn't take a finance degree to use these. You can figure them out. They're pretty intuitive. They're pretty easy to use. So do the math and start taking the action that you need to take. So let's come back to Grant. This was the exact process that we went through together. The first thing is we sat down and we figured out what his why was. And that gave him the motivation to make the changes that he was going to need to make to put himself into a better financial situation. And then each week we would have an action item for him to tackle that week. And again, we would start small. So there's just one simple action item to stay super focused and just build that momentum. And each one of those actions started to build up, and he started to see real savings very, very quickly. And honestly, we're still in the process of trying to make some of this a sustainable habit. and figuring out what are some more small action items that we can add to the table that are going to significantly move the needle and help them save more and more money over time. Because the goal is that this gets hardwired as the new normal, and that does take a little while. How long it takes kind of varies, but generally I really want to see somebody taking action consistently for multiple months before I feel confident that they're not going to slip back into old habits and old ways that got them in a bad financial situation in the first place. And the last step is really doing the math to see what difference some of these changes made and where we might need to make more changes to reach Grant's goals. And the work is still ongoing because financial freedom and some of these big hard goals take a long time. But you can see real movement towards those goals. And as long as you break that down into smaller measuring sticks, you can see the kind of progress that you're making. So honestly, I was really impressed with some of the changes that Grant was able to make. He was already saving 3 times more money than he had been. He already said that he was feeling significantly less stressed about money just in this short time frame by taking more control, taking more agency over his money, and feeling like he could resist temptations, put that money towards savings, and build towards his future. And by doing this, he already now has a plan for getting out of tens of thousands of dollars of debt. He's in a way better situation to actually provide financially in his relationship and be an equal contributor there. The point is that this stuff literally changes lives. The difference between saving what Grant is now compared to where he was will put him on a completely different path. And even just his relationship with money helps him establish a completely new identity and what I think is a much healthier relationship with money. And I got to work really closely with Grant and help walk him through some of these steps. But this really is the outcome that I hope people have from these YouTube videos. That's why I make these videos. Because for some people just need to be told that this is an option and that there's another path in life. And I really hope that these videos reach some of those people and show them that there are other ways that you can live life that aren't the normal spend 90% of your income and work until you're 70 that so many people do. And for me, that's how it worked. As soon as I realized that it was possible, I was inspired enough to do it. But I know that not everybody is. For some people, just information is not enough. And here's the honest, brutal truth, is that knowing everything I've said in this video makes absolutely zero difference. Because the only thing that makes any difference is taking action on your knowledge. So this video will only change your life and only help you if it changes your behaviors and it changes your actions. So if you don't make a change after watching this video, then this video made zero difference on your life. Obviously, I want you to make a change. I want you to save more money and I want you to be happier. If you achieve those two things, then I've accomplished my goal. And if you would like my help, this is literally what I do, and this is what I love doing. There's a link in the description for that. But for everyone else, I hope this video helped. I hope this knowledge helps you change your behavior, and I hope you save more money, and I hope you become happier. But what I haven't talked about in this video is how I actually trained my own brain to think this way. So if you want to see that, just watch this video right here.